Bro. That was so satisfying. Hey everyone, Dark Spider David here. Welcome to 2022. It's a brand new year, and I feel like New Year's are always an opportunity, and for some others an excuse to renovate, to begin again, for rebirth, if you will. And I feel like I have an action figure here that is in desperate need of a rebirth, of a renovation, so to speak. I said in my last update video that I was going to go ahead and transform Wrestler Suit Spider-Man for the final time, arguably, as you can see, into his standard costume because of the way that the rubber got just completely warped and, tattered and destroyed due to temperature conditions. And I told myself that I was going to do so and make this video upon finding the rest of the pieces to transform him into that version of the character. And upon looking for the Spider-Man 3 boxes for that Spider-Man 3 action figure video, I found the remaining pieces in its original box from 2002. Exactly, practically now, 20 years ago that I found this figure out in Toys R Us, I believe. I think it's where I picked it up. And so 20 years later, we're going to give this figure some desperate closure, just like other characters that recently did. And as you can see, I have this whole kind of setup ready to go. I got not only this first hand camera right here, brand new camera by the way, so we're now properly recording in 4K, but I also got the GoPro set up so I can witness the entire surgical operation, if you will, because I got a whole plethora of things set up. So obviously we got the pieces right here. I got some gloves, which I'm going to put on right now. I know that for flexibility and maneuverability, I should probably be wearing latex gloves, but I frankly don't have any. I just have like these working gloves that I used during my makeover last year, so I'm just gonna go ahead and work with what I have. But I also have tiny little scissors for practical incisions, if you will, and then of course a set of tweezers to be able to grip onto things a little easier. So now that everything is ready to go and set up on the table, it's finally time to say goodbye to Wrestler Suit Spider-Man. But it's about goddamn time, because look at him. I mean, everything is... the pants are practically coming off. It's probably going to be the easiest part to remove. The toughest part is either going to be a combination between the jersey slash sweater or the mask, because the mask looks terribly grafted on at this point. So I don't know if I'm going to need some kind of secondary chemical. Just to be on the safe side also, I got wipies. So I'm going to go ahead and have those at the ready right there, so that once all the plastic is removed, we can use the wipies to at least try to get rid of the residue as much as possible. It should more or less slip off easily, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Without further ado, let's get started. So let's do the obvious thing first, is to remove the arms right here. Unplug that and unplug the other one. This is obviously going to make things a little easier, at least for the jersey. So we're going to set these off to the side there. And then technically, at least when I had this figure originally back in 2002, or even a couple of years later in 2004, the next step would be to remove the feet, or rather the bottom portion of the legs, because they attach like around the shin area. However, I know that upon doing that, it's going to tear off the plastic. So this is probably going to be our first major step here. So let's do that. Oh my god, come on. It's a little tough, but you can see right there the plastic already kind of coming out. There you go. All right. So yeah, there goes already a little bit of the... oh, it's like Laffy Taffy. Easy Laffy Taffy, just removing right there. So there's already a piece coming up right there. Told you that the plastic, or rather the feet, or the pants, are probably gonna be the easiest part. And I know this is gonna make a major mess on my table here. Use the scissors here just to make a quick little incision here upon the leg. It's almost like the thing that doctors do when somebody had a major tussle and they have to have like the clothing removed. There you go. Oh, here's some. Okay, there we go. Okay. So there comes that. To be honest, I feel like this is going to be the least of our problems, removing the... because eventually I know I'm going to have to do it. But for the time being, we can leave those as is, because when we transform it into those pieces, those other pieces are going to become slightly irrelevant. So removing the rubber off of those pieces, we could do that later on, like in the shower or in a tub of a container or a plate or something of boiling water. Oh my god. There you go. So There that goes. There's the rest of those pants right there. Oh my god. Pants, we hardly New Year. Now it's time to do what the doctors really did do to my girlfriend when she took that tussle. Is to remove the sweater, or in her case it was a shirt. And just make a quick incision here. This should be okay. I think make it just one incision there on the side, especially where it's tattered up the most, right there in that shoulder area. It'll make it easy to just do this. Okay, there we go, there we go. Oh, coming up, coming up. Oh, wow. Ooh. Okay, minus the glistening oil, or whatever you want to call it. Look at that. It's actually... the inside of the figure was actually kind of slightly preserved. It's almost like all this is 2020. And maybe a part of 2021. A part of 2021 with, you know, some of the bullshit of 2021 with most of the chicanery of 2020. And now this is going to be 2022 going forward. At least I hope for it to be for me to a certain extent. Now comes the mask. I'm definitely going to need another incision here. There we go. Let's go in there and do this. I also want to make sure I don't damage the figure. I know that when I'm super focused. Oh, here we go. Pincer time. I was waiting. I'm like, am I going to need these? Now I do. There we go, there we go, there. Oh. Bro. That was so satisfying. That was, wow. That was good. That was actually really good. I'm actually kind of happy that happened on camera. So you can see, you know, you just have a little bit of residue, but there's my man Toby. My man Toby. Back at it again. We're definitely removing the dirt from his eye. It looks like it's sweating. Like it's majorly sweating. But yeah, man, there's pretty much the whole body right there. We just gotta give it a quick wipe-see. All the rubber piece. Kind of see most of it right there. And yeah, honestly, I don't know how else to proceed except to use a wipey. But to do that, and to make sure that I'm being very pristine, I am going to have to use the hands here. So the rubber residue is coming off. It is, however, sticky. Basically, to me, I would say that this figure is good to go as soon as the stickiness is gone. I was going to say that maybe leaving the rubber on his face will kind of maybe look a little bit like battle damage, like a bloody spot on his face like he does at the end of the first Spider-Man movie. But there's already a figure like that, actually. A battle-ravaged Spidey with the broken lens and the blood and all that stuff around his face. But more so here, the red doesn't really look red. It actually looks more like a pink, so it doesn't justify. I think that's pretty much all the residue. He's still a little shiny. I'm hoping that maybe that's just the alcohol from the wipey, so it'll dry up. I mean, the legs look a little bit more matted, like they originally were. But that's because most of the rubber, of those rubbery pieces, was already coming off the leg, so it wasn't able to leave too much behind. And there we have him. So now let me use this to also get rid of some of the stuff on the table here. All right, well, I tried to get as much of the residue off the table as possible, and it looks like I mostly got it. There's just a little bit here still from these pieces, but we'll take care of that after the video. For the time being, I also managed to clean up Toby here as much as possible. But now, the only thing really left to do is to add the actual Spidey pieces here that I was able to find from the original packaging. So let's get started. We got one hand, or rather one arm, which is meant to be the left arm, and it's designed fairly simple and straightforward like Spidey, except he has the web shooting hand on this one, and after all this time, still clips into place rather nicely. Doesn't feel all too loose except for the verticality there for the articulation. But otherwise, everything good to go so far. Taking the right arm now and applying it. Pop it in place. This one just has a relaxed open hand, as you see right there. And so far, he's back. He's back. I feel like that's also going to be another catchphrase for Spider-Man. He's back in more ways than you could possibly imagine, as we've recently seen. And then there goes the first leg or foot or bottom leg, whatever you want to call it. This one didn't really have that much of a satisfying pop. It just kind of fit into place and just applied itself, if you will, just fit in rather nicely. Same thing with this one. It actually kind of scares me that the peg might come off loose, but we shall see that in the months ahead. But so far, those are the two legs. There you have them. And I gotta be honest, that's practically gonna be about it, because upon discovering this package, obviously I found the pieces. I also found the standard Spidey mask. Unfortunately, similar, but not exact quite the same. The rubber mask, as you see right there on cam. This is the regular Spidey mask, and obviously what I was kind of coming to expect. In fact, this didn't even happen recently. I feel like this happened about a decade or so ago, shortly after the second film's release and closer to the third. The paint of the webbing and even one of the lenses is already scraped off completely. Like, the webbing is completely gone. You can only see the actual embossment or embossment of the web on the mask itself, but there used to actually be a paint application, like a chromey kind, like a matted chrome paint application to the webs, but it's no longer there. It's completely gone. And then almost there is the same paint application for the lenses. You could see that the right one is almost completely gone, or at least halfway gone, whereas the left one is still clinging to dear life. You can mostly make it out, but as you can see, it's super faded out from the years that have since passed. However, the reason why I say similar to the rubber pieces of Wrestler Suit Spider-Man, this one actually took the complete opposite approach. Instead of becoming all melty and ripping itself apart and all that stuff, it actually went the opposite direction. It got hard. It's super hard that if I try, even the slightest, to try to flex it in any kind of way for him to actually fit it on his head as a proper mask would, it's then going to rip, or rather crack, because it's actually not even that bendable or flexible. It's actually a hard piece. You can actually kind of hear it a little bit. Let me see if I can do it. That's the rubber mask, which obviously that's going to happen with an even colder temperature condition as opposed to the warmer one that beset on the wrestler suit pieces, because those are the ones that melted. This is practically the one that froze because of it being in a much cooler area, because where I found this, sure enough, it was in an area where none of the air conditioning hits it during the summertime, but also neither does the heater during the colder times of the season, or the year. So because of that, it just kind of kept itself in a very, very dry and very cool, and sometimes even cold, not necessarily freezing, but cold circumstance or area. So because of that, upon pulling this piece out of the box, I instantly felt, I'm like, damn, I got one set of pieces that are completely melting, and then I got another one that froze over. So because of that, can't put it on unless I end up risk breaking or cracking the rubber piece. So essentially what I kind of want to do is simply fit it on either one of his hands here, preferably the open one, and make it look like he is holding the mask in place. Let me see if there's a way that I can do it, like I said, without risk breaking the figure, or the mask for that matter, because his open hand, I feel like you can slightly, there you go. Okay, cool. All right, there it is. And the articulation, even after all this time and going through this rigorous process of removing the melted rubber piece, is still intact. It's still a little loose around the top ball joints and then the arm shoulder joints right here. As you can see, this one's kind of lopping about, but it's pretty standard articulation. The head still rotates. Yes. The arms still rotate vertically as well as go inwards and outwards per the bending of this piece right here. You actually have a bicep swivel, although that one's actually giving me some resistance. Actually, ooh, there you go. Okay, it's moving. I heard a little clack, but I was a little concerned, so it's still working. All right, nothing to worry about. And then you have one joint at the elbow, one joint at the wrist for both arms. You do have a waist joint that moves very freely. And then, like I mentioned before, the legs do flex forward that much, out that much forward, not too much back because of the way that the ass is sculpted right there. And then only one joint at the knee, and then one joint at the ankle, no footsies. This was before their time, at the very least. And then technically, because of the way that you apply the piece, you also do have the horizontal shin swivel there, but that's mainly because of the way to remove the legs if you were to transform him back. But of course, that's not going to happen. So otherwise, it looks like it passed the articulation test, and we're all still good to go. I would probably say, even after all these years, my only major issue that I even had an issue way back when is I don't like his sculpting. I like the detail of the costume, but the actual way that they sculpted poor Toby here, the face actually looks like Toby. In fact, I would argue that this is one of the finer looking Toby figures in the 6-inch model. But it's actually the sculpting of his body. I don't know if it was a thing because of the way Toybiz was told by Columbia or somebody to make him this way in order to fit the transforming from Wrestler Suit Spidey to regular Spidey model or gimmick. But I just don't like the hunched over, very scrawny kind of look to his torso. I've always hated it, even way back when. I was mostly attracted to the fact that you can transform him, but to this day now, after removing the wrestler suit pieces, it's still reminding me that this is probably my biggest gripe with the figure, is that hunched over kind of like scrawny look. Like he looks still pre-Spidey bite. And because of that, I'm like, what the hell is this? That's where the superposable Spider-Man comes into play, because that figure is actually modeled correctly, whereas this one gives him this look. And it would have been nice if maybe they threw in one or two interchangeable hands for the web zipping one, because it's cool that he's got the web zipping motion going on, but it would have been nice if I was to ever pose them neutrally to have an additional hand. But that's, of course, asking for something that's probably not going to happen. What I think could happen, and what I'll definitely keep my eyes open, is that as sad and tragic as it was to remove these melted, practically grafted on rubber pieces and be rid of them finally, once and for all, I'm hoping that someone out there, whether it be like through eBay, Etsy, what have you, will come up with a way to handcraft cloth-made pieces of the wrestler suit for old-school 6-inch figures such as this. I'm pretty certain that if I just thought of that idea, someone out there is going to make it a reality. And I'm hoping to track them That sounds terrible. I'm hoping to come across them on the interwebs and maybe pay them for like a commission job or something like that to make quality cloth pieces of the wrestler suit to fit onto the 6-inch figure. That would be amazing, and I would be down to pay a reasonable amount of money to have that be made and happen for this figure, because I still want to keep this figure in my collection. I would still love to keep that wrestler suit gimmick intact. I'm still gonna keep the wrestler pieces of the arms and the legs, of course, just without the rubber, and I'm hoping that someone in the future will make that a reality. But nevertheless, this is ultimately a great way to kick off 2022 and a new string of content coming to the Dark Spider David channel. Apologies that I went about a week or so without uploading, but that was because I wanted to get this video done in its proper format, as you see before you here with the setup, as well as plenty of other videos that I wanted to shoot back to back to back, but I managed to do that. Gonna get now down to editing, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and look out for more Spider-Man content. If you guys want to check out more Spider-Man videos, check out the playlist showing up right here on screen. And as always, guys, stay humble.